what kind of students are the worst students for you? Worst students for you?
Oh, the worst students.
I don't know about using the word worst.
There could be difficult students.
Of course, every teacher finds some kind of students difficult to work with.
I think it's quite simple. It's the students who don't speak.
Students who come to the class and don't want to talk.
Don't really want to talk.
Or refuse to speak in some way.
It's a conversation class, so you need to be prepared to speak back and forth. And the students who kind of just give like one-word answers, and I'm trying to push them, but it feels like I'm pulling teeth to do it.
But it can be for reasons such as shyness, which we have to understand, right? But I do feel as though some students are kind of pressured to come and learn English, whether it's kind of social pressure, pressure from parents, or company pressure.
They are here just because their company wants them to be here. So they just don't want to learn. They don't want to be there. And with that sort of mental block, there's nothing I can do in a one-on-one setting. In a group setting, you can kind of get the other people to talk, but in a one-on-one setting, you're just stuck for an hour looking at each other.
Or maybe they need it for business, but they're not very passionate.
Or they feel like, oh, I need to make my English better, but I don't really want to put in the effort to do so.
For whatever the reason, they don't produce, they don't talk, and they don't want to talk.
Then what about the opposite? What kind of students are the best students for you?
Yeah, I like this question. Simply those who are confident and those who are passionate. So I think those two things are not only make a student very good for me, but also make the student learn the language much quicker.
And ask a lot of questions. They want to know a lot about English, whether it's phrases, idioms, grammar points, or just general vocabulary.
In their passion to learn, that creates a very good dynamic, a very good situation where both the teacher and the student are working towards the same goal with the same confidence, with the same pace, and that's when you link up and learn quickly and learn well.
And students that ask, in what situation can I use this word? And then they put it into practice, or we put it into practice together, and I can see that they've understood and learned it, and it feels really good.
Students that are willing to make mistakes. One of the biggest preconceptions I think that especially Korean learners have is that their spoken English has to be perfect. To learn to speak a language, you have to make mistakes. It's literally how our brain works. So the best students are the students that come in within the first couple of lessons anyways, they get past that barrier. They'll just make mistakes. They'll just talk and communicate, and that's all that they need to do to learn the language.
People who are very, easygoing and who are really easy to talk to, and they love having conversations, and they love, talking about current events or just like our personal lives, or basically, people who can have a good laugh too.
And the thing is though, is that even though they are making a lot of mistakes, if they were with somebody on the street in Denver, Colorado, they would probably be able to understand them.
Is there any students who are so impressive in the classroom that you can't really forget?
Yeah, there's been a few students that definitely stick out among the rest. Usually, students that adapt to situations very quickly, like business situations and conversational situations.
Any student who correctly uses like some, kind of expression or slang or something, I'm always very, very impressed when they use it.
Because I know it's hard for students to understand some of the differences between the English language, such as formality, when to use more academic words, more casual words, what's informal.
That sort of is kind of the next level of like fluency, is being able to use those kinds of expressions. So
something that I continually tell my students is there are going to be times that you don't feel like you're learning, that nothing's happening, but you still are. I had a student specifically, when we started, her self-confidence was so low, would speak in very, like this, just kind of, because they were so worried about being perfect. and I would lead the conversation. And there was one class that she came in from like vacation or a movie she saw or something like that. And she totally led the conversation for an hour. And I just made corrections and did what I normally do. And then about 5 minutes before the end of class, I said, okay, let's stop, let's take a minute. And I said, you totally were the teacher in this class right now. And to see that moment of realization that her English had improved, that she could lead a conversation with all of the mistakes is a beautiful moment.
There's actually a couple students that I can think of. They were both studying for becoming an English teacher, actually, in high school, I believe. And the amount of sheer emotion and passion they had for finding their job, for learning English, for just life in general, was so impressive to me that I think at that moment, it completely changed the way I thought about English teaching, helping someone realize their dreams and passions. And that to me was like a strike moment, like wow. And so those two students, because they changed me so much as a teacher so quickly, I don't think I'll ever forget them. Yeah.
You also learned from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point. Like for those who are learning, for those who are teaching, we both learn from each other.
Do you think like Korean students are obsessed with something like lesser important thing, so they just overlook something else which is much more important while learning English?
Some students look at the language mathematically. It's like it's an equation. It's only one way. But people use vocabulary in different ways. I explain the vocabulary. It can be a bit confusing to the students because although the dictionary definition means this, we use it like this. So it's different, and sometimes they focus too much on, like dictionary definitions.
Really focuses on feeling of a word. I know that's important. Like there are a lot of synonyms to every English word, as you know.
I had one student who's very obsessed with phrasal verbs and understanding phrasal verbs. It's like, I just want a list of phrasal verbs. I'm like, okay, do you want to know how to use them? I'm just going to define them. And, phrasal verbs are important, I suppose, but it's not something to obsess over.
There's definitely sometimes people or students have focus, which is good to have focus, but the focus on something too narrow.
Some Korean people are really obsessed with their English pronunciation.
The pronunciation is secondary to like grammar or vocabulary or phrases in my conversational class. Sometimes, I do have some students that focus purely on pronunciation when there are more important things.
If it's something that I'm constantly being confused as to what you're trying to say, then okay, we need to work on that. But it's not the end of the world if you don't sound like a Native American or British person or whatever.
And they just forget about communicating. They're so worried about the sound or the structure or whatever, and that doesn't really matter.
When do you think or realize that it was a kind of bad choice to come to Korea and teach English?
Never. No, it's always been great.
I'm a very, social person. I enjoy talking to people and meeting new people. I'm definitely very outgoing, so that together is kind of what teaching is all about, so especially teaching English. So it was an easy choice.
I haven't realized that yet. In my inner being, I love giving to people, and English is a way to be giving. I haven't had any realization of that English is bad. Teaching English is bad, I think.
I've never felt as though teaching was a bad choice for me. Bad choice maybe. No, I can't think of anything. I really can't think of anything.